Madam Web pretty much started the year, and it gave us a sneak peek into what the superhero genre has in store for us. Let's just say it's gonna be quite the year. Madam Web has not so positive reviews, and its Rotten Tomatoes score is the most rotten I've seen in a while. But why exactly did this particular movie flop so hard? Well, there are a slew of reasons, and we're going to be talking about them in today's video. Stick around for reason number 3, because that is just the nail on the coffin for this movie. Now, the movie premiered this February, and there was a lot of annoying hype around it, with A-list actors from Dakota Johnson, you know, the one from our favorite sociopathic romance drama, to Sydney Sweeney from Euphoria, yet another controversial show. I think it's fair to say that at least a handful of people were really expecting this movie. Meanwhile, some people already had pitchforks out ready to stab this movie before it even premiered. Frankly, I was somewhere in the middle. I do like Dakota Johnson and Sydney Sweeney as actresses, but the fate of this movie was pretty much already sealed, if not for anything else, but for the fact that it was an installment in Sony's MCU, because they aren't good at making anything that isn't Spider-Man. All that being said, even though I wasn't expecting this movie to be some Oppenheimer cinematic experience, I was dumbfounded to find this movie has a 12% Rotten Tomatoes score. That's way less than what the Marvels scored. And obviously, I don't need to reiterate what the problem is with scoring less than the Marvels. Anyway, I finally got around to watching this movie, and boy, do I have a lot to say about it. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe, as you would be helping this channel a whole lot, like you literally have no idea. Now, first off, as with most movies, this one suffers largely because of the characters. I don't even know who was worse between the villain in this movie and the one on the Marvels. And you know there's a problem when you're being compared with Darwin. Simply put, the guy was bland. His motivation was pretty stupid as well. He has repeated visions that 3 unknown unnamed spider girls kill him. And while this is honestly a very terrifying reality, it doesn't just make sense. Why is he seeing these visions? How does he know exactly what they look like? He was even able to draw them accurately enough that facial recognition was able to locate the girls from basically the entire world's population. The whole concept really doesn't make sense, and it really doesn't help that the guy's whole motivation is just hinged on some vision rather than an actual experience. Now, there is the argument that the repeated nightmare of getting off in your dream can push you to the edge. However, what makes this even more annoying is that there is no basis or explanation for his recurring nightmare. Now, let's even forget about his motivation and pretend like it's solid enough. He's not even good as a villain. He doesn't bring any tension to the table. I mean, what good is a guy who constantly keeps getting bodied by a moving car? At some point, you'd even think that Cartoon Network villains are more competent. Also, how does he keep getting bested by a woman who's barely had her powers for half a week, while in contrast, he's had his powers for decades? It's downright laughable, actually. I actually laughed at how many times he was getting bodied by this absolute noob. What makes this thing even more funny is the fact that this same guy somehow managed to gain access to government technology, which he then used to track down the girls within a relatively short amount of time. You'd think that'd be the hard part, but no. Afterwards, he just proceeds to be utterly incompetent and gets bodied by a paramedic over and over again. Keep in mind also that this guy has similar powers to Spider-Man, and he's had them for years. At some point in the film, I even felt the guy was better off dead, seeing as though he's just basically useless. And this guy wasn't my only problem with the characters. Most of them were pretty much paper cutouts. We've got the snarky girl, the shy girl, and the Latina. Now, to be fair, the main protagonists were somewhat entertaining, but that's about it. We definitely did not get some top-tier characterization that would knock us right off our feet. The characters didn't even have any reason to stick together other than plot, I guess. And we never got to see what makes these girls even remotely superheroes. They're just regular teenagers that are literally the same after the movie. The only person that went through any significant character development whatsoever was Cassandra, and that is frankly disappointing. Plus, the dialogue was a bit on the nose. I mean, is there anything more cliche than,
you know, the best thing about the future? It hasn't happened yet.
Oh yeah, duh. I guess that's also the worst part of the future. That's basically what the future is. Nothing profound there. Okay, let's talk about the action sequence. I don't really have much to say about this. It's pretty clear and cut. The action scenes were clunky and annoying. The direction of the scenes was subpar, with way too many cuts. We barely saw what was going on half the time. Oh, and the future happening simultaneously along with the present also didn't help things. The third nail on the coffin is the story itself. Surprise, surprise, dear God, it was a mess. The plot was pretty basic, like Cartoon Network level basic, and an 11-year-old can watch this movie and instantly summarize what's going on for you. and it would go something like this. Batman has dreamed that girls want to kill him. Batman goes after girls that want to kill him. Other girl stops Batman. There is very little happening outside those 3 lines. I know it's funny because usually a tight and concise plot shouldn't really affect the story, but that's if the story even has any merit to begin with. Most Disney movies have concise plots, but that doesn't matter because they're at least enjoyable to watch. Madam Web was not, because apart from the plot being as basic as a Disney movie, which by the way is a recurring theme with superhero movies these days, some things don't even just make sense at all. Like Cassandra leaving them to go to Peru when their lives are in danger of someone who's capable of tanking a car crash. That was not a smart move, Cass. She couldn't even think to leave them with maybe, I don't know, the police? People that can actually protect them? But then again, considering how useless the bad guy is, Uncle Ben's probably a safe bet. The annoying part of that little trip, however, is just how shallow and rushed the whole thing is. She meets her voodoo uncle who helped give birth to her. Okay, fine. This man then pushes her into a pool which allows her to witness her mom's death, and what made her mom go to a death jungle at the height of her pregnancy when she was probably meant to be in the hospital watching Real Housewives. This scene was so cringe to watch just because of how rushed it was. I have never seen a scene so important, so rushed in my entire life, especially how she found the Las Arañas. It took her mom several months to find just one of their spiders, not even them. Meanwhile, she found them in a matter of days, with nothing but a photo as her only clue. And when she found them, they welcomed her with open arms, bathed her in some magic water that allowed her to see her past, and all of a sudden, she's Wonder Woman. At this point, you'd think you're watching a shonen, where the MC is on the brink of death and some weird cognizance literally makes him 10 times stronger than he was before. The whole Peru scene just felt like a checkbox, just something that needed to be done to make our protagonist not a complete novice. It's funny how they could devote so little time to that, despite dedicating a lot of time to absolute nonsense, like for instance, them dancing for guys like strippers at a cafe, despite them being under attack by a spider guy who killed several police officers, but happened to being terrified of the impending doom. This leads quite nicely to the next point I want to talk about, which is the utter lack of tension. And of all the things that can kill a movie fast, this is the fastest. You can get literally everything else wrong, but you cannot get this wrong. The tension is the lifeline of every story. Without tension, there is no story. When I first started learning writing, the first piece of advice that I took seriously was that every scene in your story must have some sort of tension. Whether it's subtle tension or a profound tension, it has to be there. Because if there is no tension, everything falls flat. And if you're talking about Madam Web, this movie lacked some good tension. What was supposed to give us tension in the form of our main baddie was so damn stupid that someone who could barely control her powers was running circles around him. This movie also made the mistake a lot of movies make and focused more on being a setup for a prequel than just being an inherently great movie. The movie trailer hinted that there was going to be some spidery action in this film. However, literally every scene of the girls actually using their powers was already exhausted in the trailer. It kind of feels like I was clickbaited to watch the movie. We were lured to believe that we were going to witness some female spider action. Instead, we just got to see some Spider-Man knockoff get bodied by a paramedic who just happens to see the future. I don't know about other people, but I definitely was expecting to see some Spider-Woman action. And the only time I got to see that was in the boring villain's nightmares, and that god-awfully cringe montage at the end. What's worse is that we don't even know if we're getting a sequel at this rate. So what the hell was the whole point of keeping their powers a mystery? Speaking of cringe, in the climax of this movie, Cassandra Webb unlocks her potential and pretty much uses future predicting abilities to conceive plans and contingencies on a whim. Who knew foresight also came with superhuman intelligence? A lot of her plan, by the way, just works because of plot. I mean, what are the odds that you just happen to be close to a warehouse full of explosive and everything just goes according to plan? I mean, for someone who just got her powers a few weeks ago, she sure knew how to use them to their full potential. Even that scene at the end when she just splits herself into 3 was a bit too convenient. Now, out of everything in this movie, this one stuck out like a sore thumb. What the heck is this movie's lore? It's as though they were trying to not make any sense. From the very beginning of the movie, everything is left ambiguous, from the origins of the spider and the spider people, to why they even helped Cassandra's mom, to how the spiders even work. I left this movie with way more questions than answers, and that would have been okay if there was any hope they'd make it all make sense. But now, even if they wanted to, which I highly doubt they did, they wouldn't even get the chance to now, because this movie is likely not getting a part 2. In the Spider-Man movies, we get a clear explanation of what he can and can't do, and there are no vague, shallow visions being thrown around just confusing the hell out of us. While at the very least, Madam Web does a very good job of not being anything at all. It's not funny, it's not serious enough to be regarded as such, and it doesn't even fall in the middle, it's just there. Overall, the producers and writers at Sony really missed the mark with this one. More so than usual. I mean, Venom Let There Be Carnage was already hinting at some lackluster writing, but this was just god awful. And at a time where everyone is literally just waiting for the next superhero flop, this movie was kinda destined to flop. Probably the only redeeming quality of Madam Web was that it wasn't more than 2 hours, cause I definitely could not sit through any more than that. So, today I'm going to be helpful and give a piece of advice to the producers and writers for these movies. I don't usually do this, but today I will. Stop. Stop with the generic storytelling, stop with the cliche plots and dialogue, stop with trying to rewrite the wheel. We don't need that. All we want is a good story, that's all. A story with fully fleshed characters and strong motivation and gut-wrenching moments that just make you squeal instinctively. Can we get that, please? If we can get that, I'm pretty sure we'd be headed in the right direction. Cause I'm just tired of seeing all these superhero movies flop and people saying we're in the superhero fatigue era. I don't really buy that. If you can make an effing good movie, people will watch it. Simple as that. Anyway, what did you think of Madam Web? Was it a good prequel to Spider-Man? Who knows, it could have been for some people. Or it was just hot garbage. Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, do well to like and subscribe as you'd be helping this small channel more than you could ever know. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.